Good morning, everyone. In this particular video lecture, we are going to discuss a new topic, that is energy sources. Now, my dear friends, as you all know that the sources which basically supply energy to this circuit is known as energy sources. That may be either current sources or voltage sources. Now, my dear friends, as you can see here, basically there are two types of energy sources. The first one is independent energy source, and the second one is dependent energy source. Now, my dear friends, first of all, we will see what is basically independent energy source. Now, my dear friends, as according to the definition, as you can see here, those sources that may be either current or voltage sources, which basically doesn't depend upon any other quantity in the circuit, is basically known as independent source. And further, if we talk regarding the classification of independent sources, it is divided into two parts. As you can see here, there are two types of independent sources. The first one is a direct independent source. Now, my dear friends, as you can see here, direct sources. We will first of all we will see how we will represent the direct independent sources. Now, my dear friends, as you can see here, this is basically independent voltage source, and this one is basically independent current source. Now, my dear friends, if we talk regarding the presentation of independent voltage source, then as you can see here, first of all we have to draw a circle, and then as we know in DC there are basically positive terminal and negative terminal. So we will mention the positive and negative terminal, and then we write V. Then this basically represent as independent voltage source. And if we talk regarding the presentation of independent current source, then as you can see here, first of all we have to draw a circle, and then we have to basically show the direction of current. As you can see here, this is basically the representation of independent current source. And now, my dear friends, this topic is very important from examination as well as from competitive point of view, because these questions are asked as objective questions. Now, my dear friends, as we proceed further, then the second classification is basically alternating source, which is also known as AC source. Now, my dear friends, as you can see here, this one is basically, we can say, independent we can say current source. As you can see here, it is basically represented by a circle with plus and negative terminal, and then it is represented by VT. This is basically instantaneous voltage. And now, my dear friends, the next one, basically the current source. As you can see here, it is represented by putting an arrow, and it is basically denoted by IT, which basically means that instantaneous current. And now, my dear friends, as we will proceed further, then the next one is basically dependent source. If we talk regarding the definition of dependent source, then that is basically a dependent voltage or current source is one which depends on some other quantity in the circuit, and that may be either voltage or current source. From here, from the definition, it is clear that the dependency may be either on voltage or on current. And now, my dear friends, this type of sources is represented by diamond shaped symbol. Now, my dear friends, this point is very much important from objective point of view. Question will be asked that how we will represent dependent source. Then the answer will be diamond shaped symbol. Now, my dear friends, the next, as we proceed further, then as you can see, this is basically VDVS, means voltage dependent voltage source. As you know, the dependent source is represented by a diamond shape, and diamond shape basically may be like this. This representation basically shows that the source is dependent, and if we represent any source with the help of circle, then basically that will represent that this was basically independent source. Now, in this video, now in this figure here, as you can see here, this is basically of diamond shaped. So first of all, we can say that this is basically dependent source. And now, as you can see here, this is basically AV. A is basically a constant which basically denotes the magnitude, and AV basically means that the total value of voltage. So this one is basically voltage dependent voltage source. As you can see, voltage dependent voltage source, or we can say it as a voltage control voltage source. Now, my dear friends, this one is basically voltage current control voltage source, or we can say it as a current control voltage source, or current dependent voltage source. Now, the next one is as you can see here, the next one is basically this one, and this one is basically for AC. As you can see here, this symbol basically denotes voltage dependent current source, or we can say it as a voltage control current source. And this one is basically current dependent current source, or we can say current control current source. Now my dear friends, as you can see here, all the abbreviations, that is VDVS basically denotes voltage dependent voltage source, or VCVS basically denotes voltage control voltage source. And the next one basically, that is CDVS, means current dependent voltage source, and CCVS stands for basically current control current source. Now my dear friends, these all are basically very important from semester examination, and also from competitive examination point of view. Now the next thing, that is AC waveform. First of all, we have to see here AC waveform. As you can see here, AC waveform, as you can see in the given figure, that this is basically AC waveform. As you can see here, the graph of the AC waveform basically uh, touches the, or we can say cut the time axis at pi and the and at pi and 2 pi, and further at 3 pi 4 pi. Now my dear friends, as you can see here, this one is basically, this will become pi by 2, and this one is basically become 3 pi by 2, as you can see in the figure. Now my dear friends, this one is basically denoted by plus Vm, or this one is basically denoted by minus Vm. This one basically denotes positive, and this one basically denotes negative. And this one, as you can see here, this one is basically, this point basically denotes amplitude, or we can say the maximum value of voltage. Now my dear friend, this was basically the sine wave. As you can see here, this was basically the sine wave. Now the next one is that first of all, we will see the basic definitions regarding the AC waveform. The first one is cycle. Now my dear friends, one complete set of positive and negative value of alternating current is known as cycle. Now my dear friends, as you can see here, this one basically denotes the positive cycle, and this one basically denotes the negative cycle. Means complete set of positive and negative forms a complete cycle. Means we denote one cycle from here to here. This one is basically the positive set, and this one is basically the negative set, and the combination of one complete positive set and one complete negative set basically denotes the cycle. So this was basically the definition of cycle. Now we will see amplitude or peak value, or we can say it as a maximum value. As you can see here, the maximum value, positive or negative, of an alternating quantity is so known as amplitude. My dear friends, as you can see here in the definition, as you can see here, my dear friends, in the photo, that here this one basically denotes the amplitude. Means the maximum value to which it is raised is known as basically amplitude. Now my dear friends, this one is basically the amplitude, we can say. And amplitude basically, its value is same, and it may be either. Now my dear friends, as you can see here, this one is basically the amplitude, means the highest point. Now the next one basically, as you can see here, the next one is instantaneous value. Now my dear friends, as you can see here, instantaneous value, it is the value of sine wave at any instant of the cycle. Now my dear friends, if you calculate the value of any quantity at any instant of time, then we can say it as a instantaneous value. So here, for in the case of sine wave, if you want to calculate the value of voltage or current at any particular instant of the sine wave, then it is basically known as instantaneous value. And basically, as you can see here, this value is different at different point along the waveform. Now my dear friends, this value is basically along the sine wave. If we talk then this value will be different at all the different points. Now the next one is time period. Now my dear friends, as you can see here, time period is denoted by capital T. The time taken by an alternating quantity to complete one cycle is called time period, and its unit is basically second. Time period means basically the time required. Now my dear friends, let us consider that this is sine wave, and the time taken by the wave to complete one cycle is basically known as time period, and it is denoted by capital T, and its unit is basically, it is measured in second. Now the next formula, one important formula, is T is equal to 1 by F, where F is frequency. Means we can say that time period is inversely proportional to frequency. Now my dear friends, as we know, frequency is equal to 2 pi by omega. So if we put here value omega by 2 pi, so if we put here value of f, then the value of time period will be 2 pi by omega, 2 pi by omega. Now this was basically the definition of time period and its formula. Now the next one is basically frequency. As you can see here, frequency, the number of cycle per second, is called frequency of alternating quantity. Now my dear friends, if we talk regarding the frequency, then the number of cycle completed by a wave in completed by a wave in 1 second, that is basically known as frequency, and it is measured in hertz. Its unit is basically hertz. Now my dear friends, if we talk regarding the relation between time period and frequency, then you can see here time period, which is denoted by capital T, is equal to 1 by f, means time period is equal to 1 by f, or we can say frequency, that is f is equal to 1 by t, means time period. Now my dear friends, this was all about the dependent and independent sources. Now in the next video we will basically discuss the RMS and peak value and all the different form of sine wave. Now my dear friends, that's all. Thank you.